Hey guys, Mr. Tuna here. Today we're talking about the Squarp Pyramid sequencer and how it integrates with all my gear and lets me jam. So let's get started. So the Pyramid is a real cool piece of gear. Once you get this thing set up, it'll play your synths. Your synths can play it. You can do some cool chords, or any number of really neat things. It's real easy to get jamming too. You get it. But let's see how it's all set up. Alright, so this is where it all happens. Back here, I've got a set of MIDI Solutions M8 and T8 thru-box and MIDI mergers. And they got a whole bunch of MIDI cables connected. And those cables go to and from each and every one of the synths that I own. And that allows me to play them on independent MIDI channels and gets me jamming real quick. I'll show you how that integrates with the rest of the gear. Alright, let's run through this thing. So for each synth, we've got a dedicated track and MIDI channel. Track 1 is our Juno 106 on MIDI channel 1. Track 2, the Prophet 6. Track 3, track 4. It goes on like that. That allows you to play each synth independently and the Pyramid to play them all back. Each track has got its own dedicated MIDI effects. For example, we've got a quantized feature on track 4 here, but I could add an arpeggiator if I chose, and that allows me to do exactly that. It's really simple to get going and get jamming, but I guess the most important aspects are going to be the MIDI settings themselves. So in the MIDI in function here, we can go up, and maybe one of the most important features I'll start with, just because it's hiding here, is your anti-echo feature. And by turning the anti-echo on or off, it allows you to get rid of those double triggers or what people might have problems with sending notes to and from the Pyramid simultaneously. So you're not stuck in a MIDI loop or creating any additional notes in your patterns that you're not looking for. By turning that anti-echo feature on, you may be taking away from your ability to play through the Pyramid, like for finger drumming. Turn it back off, and you're good to go. Powering the Pyramid through the USB port on my MacBook, I can route anything in and out of the Pyramid that's attached that way. Bluetooth MIDI. It's really easy to get it hooked up with any of the gear. Up at the top of the list here, though, we've got a couple of key features that you'll want to keep in mind. And Omni mode is what allows you to multi-track. So you can only do it per bank. There are 4 different banks in the Pyramid, A, B, C, and D. And those banks allow you to work with 16 different tracks each. You're going to want to turn that on, otherwise Pyramid will only respond to the current track and what MIDI channel you're using. At least as far as my setup goes, I've got it hooked up into USB and a number of MIDI DIN ports, so I've got it ignoring the sync and the start-stop from different synths, because I want the Pyramid to be my master clock. That way it won't be conflicting with other units and causing you problems. I ignore sync from USB. I don't ignore CC messages because that's really important. We want to be able to record that stuff and play it back. Same with pitch and aftertouch, but program changes have been something of a problem for me, so we ignore all those messages as best we can. Transmit sysx, I don't know why we wouldn't. And that anti-echo feature that we previously talked about. In your MIDI out settings, depending on the setup that you have, MIDI out and through allows you to play a synth through the Pyramid and transfer it back out simultaneously. If you've got local settings on your synth, it'll keep it from double triggering, or it'll allow you to hear sound as you play from the synth. All these guys send out. My MIDI B mode I'm not even using. You might be able to see that's something we choose to use. And I got it sending all my clocks from MIDI B, USB, MIDI A. It's a matter of press and play. And the thing goes. It's really straightforward in that respect, but there's a lot of back and forth that you might have to keep in mind with specific synths. Some of the units, like the Roland Boutique series or the Prophet 12 for that matter, they don't play nicely with the rest of the gear, or they want to work specifically within a setting on the Pyramid. Your anti-echo, your MIDI out and through, and that can take away from the rest of the gear that wants to play nice. You might not be able to use or play directly from the Pyramid, assuming you want to play from the synth, or vice versa, and that can really take away from the immediacy or the available options of the Pyramid. So in that respect, there's a lot of experimentation that you might have to do. I've got some creative routing through my MacBook that allows me to use the Roland TR8 or my System 8 without double triggers or getting caught in that MIDI loop option. Most of the gear runs really nice through MIDI DIN, and it's a more reliable and straightforward way to make it work without relying on the computer or the mouse and screen. But at least as far as you might keep in mind, the best option that you can have on your computer for creative routing or overcoming these limitations is a program called MIDI Patchbay, and I've got it open here on my MacBook. You can see the amount of routing I've had to make work to allow this sort of thing. So that's what it comes down to. A whole bunch of MIDI cables and experimentation. You can piece together your gear, you could run it in a daisy chain or from a merger and a through box like what I've got going. You could run it all through USB. You could plug your Pyramid into an iPad and have an incredible sequencer, hardware, tactile controls, and massive VST synths that you can load up and use at a moment's notice. The Pyramid's class compliant, so you just plug it in and you go. It works with pretty much any MIDI gear, and it will record all your MIDI control changes as you play. So that's pretty much all I can think of right now. I'm sure there's a million little things that I am not touching base on, and you're going to be wondering why. But you can ask those questions in the comments, and I will be embarrassed as to why I didn't touch base on them the first time around. See you next time.